Hello, folks, and welcome. Welcome to Just Folks Conversations with Emma. I'm Emma, and I am ecstatic, absolutely ecstatic. I am so happy, my dear friend, and believe it or not, this is my mentor. I want you all to know from the beginning, this young man has been mentoring me, and we'll talk about that later. But this is the irrepressible, original creation, Aaron Hill. And Aaron has a list of accomplishments that would literally take us 45 minutes just to go through the item by item things that he's done. So I hardly know where to start. So let me stop talking. Aaron, hi and welcome. How are you?
Hey, Emma, I'm doing all right. And as always, it's so good to be here. Your words mean a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to give a little bit of history as to how our relationship got started. Before the pandemic, what's that, a couple hundred years ago, it seems.
Yeah.
Everybody was doing, in-person activities, and that would, the disease was not an issue for anyone. We were just living our lives. I met Aaron, who was, as I had not said, but he is definitely a musician, and so his gifts and talents as a musician were how I first encountered him. I belong to a church, One God, One Pot Center for Better Living. Aaron had been sharing his talents there with us every Sunday. And when the pandemic hit and we all went into the mode of everybody stay home, don't go anywhere, don't open your windows, don't breathe, Aaron was meeting with me and my group, one of the ministries at the church, to help us cross that great divide from not being around people to being able to reach out to people. And what he showed us was that we could use electronic media, we could use the internet, we could use Facebook, the great boogeyman of people over a certain age, and not be afraid of it. And he literally met with us weekly, a group of little old ladies, week after week after week after week after 4 months, helping us to understand that it was okay. It was not going to kill us. It was not going to hurt us. It was certainly not as bad as COVID. And that all we needed to do was just develop some skills. And from that basis, many of us have just moved into a whole nother realm of existence. This program, this little podcast, Just Folks Conversations with Emma, is a direct outgrowth of the things I learned with Aaron. Aaron, you really have done so many things. I'm just going to give an overview. You are more than proficient in music. As a pianist, jazz musician, you have audio engineering skills. You're a philosopher. You study theology, psychology, psychotherapy, mindfulness, meditation, business. You're an entrepreneur. You are credentialed. You are literally a Renaissance man. And how did you get your start? What was the impetus that got you to be the kind of person you are? I have the answer, but I want to hear you say it.
Yes. MOM. Some people have different names for, who that person is. My mom, Cheryl Lawson. Yeah, my mother was the first in our family to go to college. My mother became a teacher during the time when they needed teachers in Baltimore City. She went to Morgan State University. My mother had a full ride and sat in the classroom as a teacher's assistant and took note of all the deficiencies that she saw in the students that she was working with and decided to reverse engineer from that list a different human being. So as soon as I opened my eyes and I could see around our house, everything was labeled with words. I was reading before I was one. She was taking me to the museum and put me in theater and dance and baseball and taking me to the library every Saturday. I got education, exposure, and experience on a level that is everything that you see embodied right now. The funniest joke that my mom has for me is after we talk about all that and we reminisce, she said, "Yeah, you were my science project." And then after she says that, she's like, "I've created a monster." In every sense of the word. Um, so that's my journey in a nutshell. How I got from there to here, as far as what the impotence was, what the cause was to this effect.
Well, she absolutely has done a magnificent job. I've met your mom. She is a beautiful person from the inside out. She really is a role model for a lot of people and just how she lives, and certainly in the way she was able to infuse you with the love that you actually express on a daily basis, and that is certainly one of the things that I admire about you. Um,
Thank you.
that you are a very sharing and giving person, and everything you've learned, you share it. Um, we could, our little group at the church could not have afforded and still can't afford to pay you, you know, what you put into us. But what has come out of that is showing up in myriad ways. But let's not talk about me and what we've done. Let's talk about many of your projects. I know you're an author, and one of the things that you did last year that probably, I'm guessing, came out of some downtime, if there's such a thing for you, um, was your book Gems.
Yeah. So so right before I share about the book gems, I want to share a few gems about working with the little group of yours that was so big to me, for so many reasons. Um, one thing you said is that, we couldn't afford to pay you, which I understand exactly what you're saying. But it reminds me of something in life that I've been fortunate to have a number of times over and over again. And it's also something that I try to share as well with other people so that they can invite themselves into this kind of experience as well. So I came up with this concept called getting paid to practice. And when getting paid isn't limited to currency and dollars, and coins and that kind of thing, but as like one of my favorite mentor, Gary Vee says, the people are the currency. Experience is also currency. Sometimes exposure and education just from doing something that you want to do, and so you're manifesting it by doing it so that it could start the wheels turning and carry you in the direction that you're trying to do. And then you don't look at this experience as little and that is big unless you look at it as just all little steps forward, relatively speaking. um it you get paid more than you could possibly imagine. And that's how I felt, and that's how it was for me. And then there's the payment of relationship building. That was an opportunity and a time for me to just connect with my family first off, people that have been my family for now the last decade and plus 2 years. um the people at One God, One Thought Center, yourself and included. And so it was that. It's being able to, as Mahalia Jackson says, if I can help somebody, then my living isn't in vain. And I tell people, I already know my living isn't in vain, so I'll just spend time helping people. So sometimes you should do things because the payment is everything that you need in order to get the money that you desire, and that kind of thing. Um, and I've been fortunate to do that. And when I say fortunate, I've had experiences where I could do that in a relatively safe environment where I was seen, where I was safe, and where I was supported, and that was one of those environments. So it's a little gem to me, but one of the biggest experiences that I've had that I'm proud of and that I'm grateful for. I wanted to let you know that.
It was life changing for a lot of us, and for me in particular, um, because I discovered that things that I do naturally, well, actually things that I enjoyed, but I hadn't figured that part out. And what you offered to us, and I just want to say this specifically, it was the same lesson week after week after week, but you never became impatient with us. We, it was what, 8, 10 people in the group, and all 10 of us had the same question with different words. And
Yeah,
you responded to each of us at the level of consciousness where we were, which made the information accessible. And you offered it with such a spirit of love and encouragement. Um, we couldn't say no, and didn't want to. What we did do was take our ministry to another level of performance, and it was much more accessible to more people because we didn't have to have a physical location for people to come and sit.
right.
We used the internet. We were able to get the message out. We shared it with folks. People around the country got to participate in activities joyfully that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to. They might have heard about it from somebody, down the
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
This immediate and accessible, and the gift that keeps on giving is the love, the seed that you planted. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
So let me tell you the visual that comes to my mind, and this is why that was so important to me because everything that you just said, and you see how it's lighting me up because it does so much for me. It pays me in so many ways. Um, do you skip rocks, or do you like to skip rocks, or did you skip rocks as a kid? Where you go out to the water and you take a rock and you try to make it bounce on the water.
I read about those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
yeah. So that's one of my favorites. If you get a chance one day,
Okay.
literally, if you're around a beach, if you're at, a lake or something, and there's rocks around,
Hmm.
especially if you could find rocks that have somewhat flat surfaces,
Okay.
pick up a rock, take it, toss it toward the water, and try to spin it with your hand
Hmm.
to see if you can make it do this. So when it hits the water, it bounces.
Okay.
So that was one of my favorite things to do as a kid. One, because it was just purely fun. Here it is again. This is the monster that was created by the science experiment by the 36-year, retired Baltimore City school teacher, of a mom in a safe environment, where I could have these experiences and be relatively good. So the physics of it, the math of it, that's one of the biggest and fun parts for me. And then just the fact of what you see, which is when you throw a rock, now even if you don't skip rocks, when you throw a rock in the water, you drop it, specifically say a still lake, what happens? You see it drop, and then what happens in that drop? You start seeing a ripple, and then you see another ripple, and you see another ripple and another ripple.
Hmm.
So for me, what we did together and where I invested my time and what I saw, the vision that I saw was that of being a rock to drop in the ocean, create a ripple so that from there you had nothing but these continuing ripples so that you all became an expression of my mind, my light, my love, and then it multiplied. Then I can sit back and actually enjoy because that's what a teacher does. They enjoy when their students are thriving. That's the most fun thing,
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that was what that experience was. And the reason why I brought up skipping rocks is because when you skip a rock and that experience happens, you start seeing this happen. You see ripples happen like this, and the rock bounces, hits another part of the water, ripples again, bounces, and that's the fun of it because you try to see how many, with the way you do it, how many times can you get it to do that before it falls.
Mm,
So so I'm the rock that is making this impact and then
mm,
propelling from there to it, while those remnants still go and go. That for me is just fun. That's life, that's fun. And one of the things I want to say, even the segue, is that I realized one of the biggest reasons why am able to do that in so many ways in life is that my upbringing was where I had just enough adversity to give me a backbone and not enough to break it.
okay. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean is that some people aren't able to do what I just did, whether it's skipping rocks or whether it's actually investing in other people and doing these things, because they've been taken advantage of too much, or they've been hurt, and they would like to do that. This is where the possibilities are endless. Is like, yeah, except for sometimes depending on what you've been through, you can't access those possibilities. So it's
Mhm.
like that, you know, investing in others and doing that and allowing yourself to soar from there and understanding that that's always out there. But I had an upbringing where I was able to do that over and over and over again and see that and do it in a way where I was relatively safe. Which is why I have no problem trusting people, which is why I don't live in a world where I'm like, ooh, which is why I can have an idea and I'm not afraid to go at it no matter whether it fails or flies.
Mhm.
It's because of my experiences, especially during my childhood, that range of time where you form what they call your attachment style, the relationship you have with yourself,
Mhm.
through that lens, and the relationship you have with other people, what kind of relationship you have based on whether you were neglected, nurtured, protected, these kind of things. Um, so yeah, I just want to, point that out because that's the reason why I'm able to do what I do. Um, I had experiences that give me a mindset that's in a healthy enough place to do that. And I'm not afraid. I haven't been through the kind of adversity that will break my back. So I'm not afraid to get out there and do these things.
Well, again, we go back to the foundational piece, which is your mom. And for me, I feel that all things are in divine order. So the circumstances that brought her to a school system, which in some ways, even 30, 40 years ago, had its issues. Out of that came the mindset, the consciousness that she could, I'm gonna use your words, reverse engineer things that were not desirable to get what she wanted, and to do it with a sense of purpose, um, and love, because clearly that's the piece that you express. It comes out of your pores. um, and in that way, it's almost like saying, and I know you're familiar because it's one of your terms. I've been following you with toxic positivity. I mean, that's kind of a modification of what you said,
That's what it
but
is. Yeah.
your mom had the wisdom to discern apparently how much could be applied to, as you say, help you build your backbone as opposed to having it torn down. And
Yeah, that, and I just happen to be fortunate to have it was the protection, it was the circumstances that, the times that I was taken advantage of in life, it was it was the best possible way you could be taken advantage of where it works in your favor. It's those kind of things, those kind of circumstances. And yeah, so it really lent a lot to my experience. You know, toxic positivity you know, for people that may have never heard that, that's a term used to describe when someone is positive to a fault. Meaning, the way I would describe it is like when we're so positive that it actually turns into denial of reality.
Mm, okay.
And it's an interesting subject. You know, that's one of those like, you know, you know that because that right there is one of the biggest things that changed my whole life, my philosophical view of life, my theological view of life, and all that kind of thing. Um, yeah, so it's a very interesting subject. Um, so
It requires a balance, it, you know, and yet it's also an addictive mindset because it's empowering. It certainly is empowering that you can plow through anything, but at some point it kind of leaves you in a
hanging.
yeah, it leaves you hanging. Okay.
Look, when you said, you know, one of the biggest things that's been hitting me is these it's this unless it's not. I actually said it Sunday in the meditation. I was like, acceptance is easy, except for when it's not. You know, positivity is empowering, except for when it's not. Like, especially like we're saying, this overly like, it doesn't matter what it is, it's good, it's always gonna be, it's like, and that comes from, you know this, being someone who sees me every day, out here in this world. That comes from, I'm positive, like one of the most positive people I know myself. Like it's just, I'm optimistic, but I think there's a place where we become so optimistic that we are no longer being realistic. And then comes the next level of like, whether we're able to deal with the consequences of those things, or like whether we even know, that it is a thing, that there are consequences in these kind of things. So it's a very, very interesting subject. But I want to also share this, especially to tell how Gems comes into play here. So yeah, I wrote a children's book a couple years ago. This has been about, I guess this is year 2 now. And it's called We Are Gems. GEMS is an acronym for Gifted, Educated, Mindful, and Successful. It's the story of my life from age 5 until now in the form of a rap in 5 minutes, 30 pages. And it tells my whole trajectory, from 5 when my mother bought my first record player, and all the influences that I had along the way as far as music and exposure and education, but specifically to music, and how I went from the record player at 5 all the way to, I'm about to be 42 in a few days, and from record player to music therapy, and mental health, artistry, and advocacy full time, Um, so that's We Are Gems. And for anybody who's interested, that's actually available on my website, which is aaronhillsworld.com. You'll see Gems there, aaronhillsworld.com.
And we're going to have links to all of the projects and activities, your schedule, as well as your website in the description. So folks can follow you and access you that way. You don't happen to have the book in front of you now, do you?
I do have a scratch copy right here.
Very, very good. You know what? I can't see it. There, got it.
So
Okay.
We Are Gems, Gifted, Educated, Mindful, and Successful, illustrated by my good friend Coco Lorraine Vera. And yeah, I tell people I wrote a children's book for adults. So, and I say that because for adults, it's able to tell you the whole story of my life. For many people, it contextualizes the person that they know. So when you go to the website, not only will you see the book, but you'll be able to press play and go ahead and listen to the song and hear all the lyrics of the book. I've been fortunate now to take that into schools and to do what we call GEMS workshops with the kids, where they read and rap the book with me all together. And then we talk about what does it mean to be gifted and what are their gifts, what things would they like to be educated on outside of school, because that's a big part of my story. We talk about mindfulness and what it is and how to apply it. I give them a 5-finger breathing exercise to deal with if they are dealing with stress and these kind of things. And then their successes, things that they're proud of with themselves. And then after that, I have the kids to come up because I do the presentation with my piano in front of me, and I have the kids to come up and we remake the gems beat one instrument at a time. I have each kid come to the keyboard and record a part of this. It's a great time. I've had a lot of good experiences so far with gems and looking forward to a whole lot more.
Well, clearly, the students are having a wonderful time because you have posted the videos and they're enraptured. They are
Yeah.
having a great time, and so are you. So, and it's the same kind of energy that you bring to all of your projects. I don't really know where to start because there's so many from this point. What do you want to talk about next?
Yeah. The most important thing to me in my life, the most important stage of my life that I'm in, the most important title is mental health artist and advocate. Um, for me, everything that I have been from the beginning of my childhood and getting interested in different things in life, things like science and math. I was really good at math. I was really acute at science, and I love science. Philosophy and psychology. Psychology was the biggest thing. Um, it brings me to this place where all those things, everything that I am, I'm a musician, I'm an audio engineer, I'm a producer, I'm a mindfulness and meditation teacher, stretch and flexibility and mobility coach. I'm a creative brand and marketing strategist. I'm an author. I'm a humanist. All these things come together under the roof of psychology. I care a lot about how we think, what makes us tick, um, this fascinating brain and and how we process it. So what I decided to do, my piano mentor, one of the things I talk about in the book is I say I say that I was having so much fun in class. I was having so much fun in class that I decided to ask my music teacher if I could make music in class. And he said yes. And then from there, I found a mentor a couple of years later who took me under his wing. My mentor taught me for 20, I'm sorry, it was 20 years ago. I was with him for a year and a half. We spent life together all together for 2 years, and then he transitioned. But in those 2 years, I learned music therapy in my piano lessons and have been applying it for the last 20 years in my music, in my performances, in my recordings, and that kind of thing. So I decided to take that. And then during the pandemic, I
Let, let,
decided,
let
yeah,
me
go
back
ahead.
just 1 second and clarify for us what you mean by the music therapy and what showed you and shared.
Yeah. So what wound up happening was in my piano lessons, my mentor would teach me not just how to play, but actually what to play at specific times in order to really trigger the emotions and really lead people into a particular place of healing. It just so happened for those 2.5 years that the structure of the music was gospel. I was learning how to play gospel music, and then I would play in church for the next 10 years as a minister, music organist, pipe organist, and pianist. But while he was teaching me that, and the beautiful part was that it came through that lens because that music, as related to and birthed by the blues, comes from that place of connecting directly with the emotions and also the emotional expression. It's a vehicle for that, as is all music, but blues and gospel have a special kind of place when it comes to survival and the human longing for life and pushing forward, you know. So during that time it was going past the notes, he was teaching me how to use music therapeutically.
Mm.
And then he was also teaching me how to be therapeutic to people, which is what I would later learn in school for psychotherapy. Um, I would learn is the biggest thing beyond any therapy you could do to people. It's being therapeutic yourself to people in your whole being. So he was teaching me that, and it was just osmosis. It was just through him being a professional and him just knowing how music therapy played a part, like the profession of music therapy, how it played a part in being a musician. Um, and so that's how, that's how it was put into me, so to speak. Now I would never call myself a music therapist, but that's because of technical reasons and law reasons and that kind of thing. But almost all of us out here relate to and even talk about music from that perspective. If you say to someone music is therapeutic, everybody, except for a few people will go, yes, yes it is. So yeah, so that's how the therapy of music in what I do in my practice, how it plays a part.
Well, they do say that music is that universal language that reaches across cultures and time, um, and even well, to all kinds of creatures. People play music for their animals, for their pets, and a number of experiments have been conducted about how music impacts animals living in their natural environment. And there are videos all around of animals being drawn into someone playing a violin or singing, in their natural environment. So it's very, very powerful. And you have the knowledge and intentionality to use it in a way that's, as you say, therapeutic, to be that instrument. So it just kind of flows through you to other people. Now, you use that concept extensively during the pandemic when everybody was on lockdown. You
Yes.
were in the streets. You want to talk about that?
Yes, Street Serenades.
Yeah.
So Street Serenades was birthed May 29th, 2020. First time I took my piano to the streets. And a couple years before, I was taking my piano to the streets for this series I call Spur of the Moment. And it was just where I would record live piano music videos in certain places. I did a couple out at the Liberty Reservoir here in Maryland. And I wanted to bring it back anyway. So I was like, you know what? This would be the perfect time. I mean, right now, as musicians, the venues are closed. There's no live music happening inside. So for me, I look at life like a canvas, so I just see opportunities to paint. And I'm like, this is the biggest venue right here. Outside is endless. Like it's the venue right here. So I decided to take my piano. I was out in Ellicott City, and I played in front of this sushi place out there. And I always look at things from the other side, from other people's perspective, is what helps to really inform our perspective. So I'm sitting there, and here it is. You have this world-class pianist who just is all of a sudden playing out in front of a humble sushi place. So needless to say, the people that were coming out, they're just like, oh my goodness. And they had the line outside, so that way they delivered the orders that way. So it was the greatest thing. So they came, the owners, they came out and started giving me food. They were thanking me. They were smiling, happy. It was just a great time. And for me, it was fun to be able to share. I wound up multiplying that and times 160 and doing that 160 times all around the DMV. And even as far as Atlanta and South Carolina on the beach and that kind of thing. And so that's what Street Serenades is. And during that time, my mom found herself as a pandemic artist. She called me and told me that she was going to get a coloring book and just use that to pass the time in March of 2020. She started sharing her pictures on Facebook. Needless to say, people wanted them. She started framing them, giving them out, then charging $10 for them, 15. And then she started going from coloring. She wouldn't just color. She would put like, that's where the creativity comes from. She would put these rhinestones and just all these other kind of things, bring it to life in a whole other way. Truly showing that the possibilities and the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I've never seen anybody do that with a coloring book. But she went from that to creating her own original pieces.
Mhm.
And then she sold between 400 and 500 through the pandemic. She came outside with me on the street, and
Mhm.
we're side by side. I'm playing piano, she's there with our art. One of the things that she would say often is that we had our own mini artscape, which
Yes.
is a big festival. It's the
Yeah.
largest of its kind. So
Yeah.
that's what Street Serenades was, and I got a chance to spend at least a third of those 160 with my mother. So as you can imagine, it's the greatest time ever. It was the biggest benefit to our relationship. You know, we got even more close. It was just amazing.
The amazing part of it was, yes, you and your mom were clearly in your own universe, having a wonderful time. I saw her pieces, her original artwork, and her ability. I will say this: her ability to capture the essence of anyone that she focused on was is remarkable.
Right.
Um, I don't know what her training is as an artist, but the simplicity and directness of the imagery that she created, along the flash and the dash, because she bedazzled everything. She
Right.
she could take a simple, not a caricature.
Right.
What art goes beyond caricature,
Art goes beyond characters. Right.
but she captures the essence of the person. So
Right.
let's
Very
say she
good.
did one of Ray Lewis, the football player. You immediately know her style, but you also
Style.
recognize Ray Lewis.
Right.
And she incorporates the spirit of the person. So there's enough additional symbolism that she attaches
Right.
to, and sayings, because she also infuses a little wisdom in there. Um,
Yeah.
um, into those pieces. So people are drawn to that. So there's your mom in her universe creating her expression of love. And here you are, her expression of love, her son, creating your universe with music. And the vibrational energy that was coming off the two of you is just irresistible. Because I watched people hear you before they saw you,
Right.
be drawn into the space, and you didn't really have any awareness of anybody else being around because you are into the music and and giving of yourself through the music. So folks are just being pulled in to that
Right.
space, and then they see your mom's artwork, and it's it's like being in a bell curve of some sort of something kind of covered the space, and folks came into that very safe, sacred space, enjoying the music and having the visual input from your mom, and everybody's walking away with something that makes them feel good. It's really remarkable, remarkable, wonderful, wonderful.
So fun. And I'm going to continue with those street serenades. You know, now I plan them a couple times a year. So I got a couple coming up that you and everybody else will be learning about. And it's two final things I want to share about street serenades that's special to me. One, which is my mom never had any art training. My mom, and I'm now you made me realize something that's going to be one of the very next things I'm going to do. I have this picture. I think it's in my phone somewhere, but I'm going to print it and frame it so that way I can show it to people. My mom in 1966, I believe it was, she was, I think, in the ninth grade, I believe it was. And she drew this picture where they used to, on the back of the matchbooks, you would have this picture contest and you had to draw it and mail it in. She drew this picture of this sailor that is mind blowing. My mom is naturally gifted when it comes to drawing and art. Um, it's if you see this picture, I mean, you would really think that she had training, and you would think a professional did it. It's like it's flawless. It's mind blowing. She drew the picture. She never mailed it in, and she always kept the picture. Now her artistic creativities would come out in being a teacher. Because my mom would, when she was drawing her lesson, first of all, her handwriting. If you just saw her handwriting alone, you just like, oh my God, it's just art. And then and then if you saw the way that she designed her boards for class and these things, she would do little drawings, but she wouldn't think much of it. It was just nice little fun touches. She would just have fun doing it. But if you came in a classroom, you'd be like, whoa. And so that was the extent of it. We would sometimes be sitting down at the dinner table, and every now and again, once in a blue moon, my mom would take a napkin, and while we're waiting on the food, she would just draw something. And then when you saw it, you were just like, wow. So that's my mom's natural ability. And then it came full circle. The funny part about it is that as talented and as gifted as my mom is, she she knows it more now, but like she still is like, I don't know what people see. You know, she jokes about it all the time, like, yo, people crazy. These are kindergarten drawings, you know. It's humble and she just it's just sometimes when a gift, I tell people this all the time, sometimes when something comes so natural to you, you're the last person that actually sees it as something phenomenal because you've been living with it all your life. It's just who you are. So I wanted to share that, you know, and then the second thing I wanted to share is that probably my most proud thing about Street Serenades, in addition to spending that time with my mom, was my mother, like sitting in her artist chair and just hanging out, you know, and looking through her eyes, looking at me. My mom got a chance to see all the fruits of her labor, every expression from math to the things that influenced me to go towards music, to my people skills and communication, to my patient. Like she got a chance to see all of that. And that's pretty cool. Like I really I'm grateful for that. Like it's pretty cool.
That's your gift to your mom. That's your gift to her. It's beautiful.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So that's that. I did want to if you're okay with it, unless you want to go somewhere else, I do want to talk a bit more about the mental health artists and advocacy. You want to go there now or
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah.
okay. So 20 years of applying music therapy principles. And then during the pandemic, in addition to the street serenades, I was doing a couple other things. I became a what I call a telephone celebrity. I wound up getting on Clubhouse and becoming a morning radio show, creating my own show. And of course, you and I, we had a lot of great times. Yeah.
No, explain Clubhouse. Everyone may or may not know what that is.
Yeah. Clubhouse is an audio chat app that came out during in 2019. It's basically the equivalent of the party line for many people that are familiar with that, where you just, it's like three-way, I call it advanced three-way calling, you know, where it was multiple people can get on a line, but each conversation would be about a topic of discussion. So it was like, I called it telephone 2.0. You had the audio aspect, but then as far as the visual, the app, you were able to scroll down what we call a hallway, find a conversation, and then go into that conversation, which is called a room. In that room, people from all over the planet would just be connecting, doing different things, talking about things, interviewing each other, playing games, like whatever the room is about. And it was one of the biggest and most impactful things on the planet during the pandemic, and still is. And so I got on there and I created my own improvisational morning show experience called the AP Morning Show. AP was a double entendre. My name is Aaron Prentice Hill, so it was AP there. And then the AP first stood for accountability partners. That was the first thing. Because I got on there just to be an accountability partner to myself and other people. So that's what Clubhouse was. It exploded. I started doing it 5 days a week and being on there, meeting people all over the world. And there are people today that are still with me from that time. And we're like this, you know, I've had business ventures, people still follow me on social. The one biggest thing about it that I appreciated was that it was such a deep connector that in the first experiences I did there, when I looked at the comments afterwards, the way that the people were commenting was like as deep and sometimes deeper than the people that I had known or been with for 10 years or more. But I knew that was because of the type of experience it was and how it allowed us to connect and be vulnerable and genuine with each other. It was a very, very deep social connection piece for the planet. Yeah, so that was Clubhouse. And then while I was doing that, you know, during the day, I also decided that I wanted to pursue my fascination with psychology. I put myself in school for psychotherapy. It's been now for a year, 5 years now. And I put myself in school for psychotherapy just to help my friends, family, and community, but I didn't want to do it the traditional way. I just wanted the education and I wanted to put it through an artistic type of lens. So I did that. And then after that, I said, well, what I can do is I'll become a certified mindfulness and meditation teacher so I can put everything under that expression. Because essentially, one of the biggest things when you're doing psychotherapy is you are doing mindfulness and meditation, on steroids, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so I did that, and then I decided also to add a stretching, flexibility, and mobility certification from the National Academy of Sports Medicine on top of that as well, because during the pandemic I started meeting with people with what I came up with, which was called 5M, soulful self-care. 5M is my own mental health self-care formula that consists of 5 M's and is based on 5 minutes, 5 minute self-care. So the 5 M's are music, movement, meditation, mindfulness, and mantras, which are positive affirmations. Uh, During the pandemic, I started a virtual experience where we would go through those 5 M's and I would help people to heal, to decrease stress, anxiety, grief, depression, improve sleep, and increase their strength, flexibility, and mobility. That unfolded from my own personal come to self-care journey. In 2019, I was experiencing the most stressful time of my life, no different than anybody else as far as normal things, transitions, family dynamics and movements and financial, just normal things. But it led to me having some things that impacted my health. And from doing 10 minutes of meditation and stretching every day, I reversed, everything.
Hmm.
Being someone who always pays things forward, I started sharing that journey online. And that journey went from what I call the 10% happier journey, because that was the self-care formula I was following. That turned over to being the 5M soulful self-care journey. I was helping other people on the way, and so I decided, let's go forward full time with this. So mental health artistry and advocacy is what was birthed from that. When I launched 5M Soulful Self-Care, I started doing live workshops, and then I started working with veterans. It's been 2 years I've been working with veterans at the Baltimore station, where my program is on their clinical programs. And I've been doing that work. Recently, I did an amazing event with the Environmental Grantmakers Association, which is an environmental justice and climate change organization with 200 billion in assets, and they give away over 10 billion a year in that field. And so I've been able to do some amazing, amazing things. And then the last thing I'll say is I decided from there, in addition to doing workshops and being a speaker and facilitator, the way that I was able to lock into my self-care formula and be consistent was by having an app that was at my fingertips where I could just keep it flowing and have it right in the palm of my hand. So I decided to turn 5M Soulful Self-Care into an app as well. And so that is now here where it can be downloaded. Yeah, right in the App Store. 5M Soulful Self-Care is free. And that's been the journey. It allows me to do everything that I've ever done in life and ever want to do under one guise. So you will always, from this point on, hear me referring to myself as a mental health artist and advocate. That is everything.
And that is a beautiful way to tie in everything that you've learned. And what I like about what structure is that it doesn't lock you into anything. It's a creative foundation that
Right.
allows you to move forward. So as you discover other things, as you are definitely going to do, you will be able to incorporate that, I'm pretty sure, under that same umbrella, so that there's consistency and um, there's no conflict. The one thing I think is holds people back is when you find yourself in a conflicting position where you see things that well, if you have an internal conflict, it often makes you freeze. You're not able to move forward. But given the way that you have organized your life, it allows you to continue to explore and to add on because your life experiences are going to continue to teach you new things anyway. So I can't wait to see what you do next.
You know, it's been an exciting journey. And I want to let people know, you this app I think is my most important thing. Um, Within the app, there are stretches, and I do movement routines, 5 minutes to help you get out your aches and pains before you even get out of bed. You know, and this I'm gonna be living my life through that portal, you know, so much. And for people, if you want more information even about 5M self-care, just go to 5mselfcare.com. And that's the number five, the letter M, selfcare.com. And you could download the 5M Soulful Self-Care app. So upcoming, I got a silent movie.
Yes, you
That's
do.
one of the things I'm excited about.
Well, talk a little bit about the silent movie.
Yeah. Saturday, May 4th, I'll be performing with the Maryland Film Festival. I'll be performing solo piano for my first silent film. It's a film called Body and Soul, created by a legendary filmmaker named Oscar Micheaux, who was really one of the ones to pave the way for our Black filmmakers today. He
Mhm.
came out in 1925, and his films were about challenging the perception of Black people at that time and turning it around. He had over 40 productions, and they all featured an all Black cast, and these kind of narratives really challenging. One of the biggest things that he did, which a lot of people will know about, he had a movie that challenged um, Birth of a Nation, you know, which was heavy Jim Crow law. Um, and it was so he was that guy. You know, I just learned about him recently, so I'm honored to do this because I'll be doing it with the Maryland Film Festival, and it's going to be Saturday, May 4th at the Parkway Theater here in Baltimore.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited about that.
Well, I think we're all going to be really excited about that. Oscar Micheaux really was revolutionary in his time. And you're right, he did set the foundation for Black artists and producers and directors, for those who know their history and even for those who don't. Um, and a silent film means that you are going to be creating, you don't have a score in front of you.
Right.
All right, so what is your process for dealing with this?
Yes, thank you for that question. This is so fun. So I'm going to do a bit of a completely free improvisation and a combination of movements and pieces that are some from my collection, some that I'll actually create and kind of have a framework for and allow myself to improvise from there. And and a few songs, like I plan on I can't, you can't do Body and Soul without playing, the jazz standard Body and Soul. I mean, you can, but it might work in your favor
Want to?
too. So I'm excited about that because that's actually one of my favorite jazz standards to play. Um, and I was listening to a version that last night, and one of the ones that I'm taking in to really process the movie. I was listening to a version where the score was written by a guy named Wycliffe Gordon, who's a trombonist from New Orleans, and it's amazing. He had a few things in there that I'm going to pull from, and it's this ability to pull together so many things and create what I like to call a collage. You know how you have the kind of art where you cut out the different letters from different places and the different pictures put them together? That's what this is for me, which is how I started off making music as a hip hop producer even. So my process is watching the movie, listening to other scores and processing and really seeing how they brought it to life, finding things that I like to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna, that's gonna be one of the things I do. Turning the sound off, and I have my piano in front of the TV, just playing to it and improvising based on what I see on the screen, Um, and all of the above, it's literally pulling from every part of who I am musically. from the arranger and producer to the free improviser. That's my process, for this. I've gotten a chance to play for play productions in the past, which is the thing that comes the most close to this. Only difference is just live people in front of you, but it's the same kind of thing. And I had fun doing that because I started off music as a producer to find sounds to fit moods. You make hip hop music. So that's my process. And as you see, I keep smiling because oh man, it's fun now and it's gonna be so fun in that moment.
Well, in order to do that, requires almost an encyclopedic knowledge of music,
Mm.
as well as the comfort with it to pick and choose and pull, instantaneously in the moment. And you didn't begin as a musician. When did you actually start playing, an instrument? How old were you when you started?
Yeah, I was so it's interesting because the first instrument that I touched was a drum machine. And I got that drum machine when I was 16 years old. And this drum machine, I wish I had, in fact, I have something here that kind of mimics it. So this right here, it was something similar to this, but with a lot less pads. It was only 12 pads down here at the bottom. And on those pads, you play the instrument. It mimics like the layout of a keyboard, but just with 12. And you can play different sounds. You can pull up a drum sound, and now you got a drum kit on those keys. And then you can also sample outside sounds into it. You can record them into it. So you make a combination of internal and external sounds. I got that when I was 17. That was an instrument called an ASR X drum machine. And I was familiar with it because other producers and studios that my rap group went to, they had those instruments and I was used to seeing how they did it. So that was my first instrument. And you can make a whole musical composition. In fact, I have a whole library of just, we call them beats. They're musical compositions, you hear, and I'm playing all the instruments just on this thing. Then what I did so I had the internal sounds, but then the other piece to get the outside sounds, my family had digital cable. So what I used to do was take my 4-track and connect it to the digital cable box. And every day I would take a blank tape and I would put it in my 4-track. And when I was going off to school, I would hit record and I would choose a music station because that's when you had the music stations, and we still have them today, but it was where it started. We had the music, each station was like just that music 24/7. I would record a different genre every day. And then when I came home from school, that was the music that I would listen to and use to make my music. And again, when I say use, and I'm explaining the hip hop production process, the way I like to explain it is I would listen to all these musical compositions, and just like you make a collage where you cut out little things from different pieces and put it all together, that's how you make the music. So I might hear one sound here in this place. I'm like, oh, I like that. And maybe a drum here and there, and you put it all together. So that's how I expose myself to all these different styles of music that you're talking about, to have that grab bag. And then at 17, I was like, if I could do this well by ear, because I was getting some really significant accolades from other producers and people in New York and all these kind of things. And I said, if I could do this well by ear, what would happen if I actually learned an instrument, and studied some form of music? So I decided to approach the keyboard because the keyboard was the most familiar instrument around me. In every studio, there was a keyboard there. That's what they used to pluck out these sounds and these beats. And so I taught myself how to read music at 17. And then at 18 is when I got interested, when I was in the church, and I got interested in gospel music and these kind of things, and jazz and these other styles of music. And then that's when I found a mentor between 18 and 19. So it's funny because I didn't start playing the piano professionally until 21. And I didn't start studying until I was between 18 and 19. So technically, for many people that play piano, that was actually a lot later. But but my story is that number one, I had the discipline on my side of practicing because of my mom and that structure. And then I also was doing something that was a hobby that I would set aside time for. So by the time I got my first music job, I spent 30 hours a week practicing music. So I caught up, you know.
You did and surpassed many. And the demonstration of that, people can catch you on Monday nights in Baltimore at the location in it's a neighborhood called Remington in Baltimore. And the
Yes.
establishment is Our House, the letter R. Um, and it's a free concert that if you had to pay for it, you'd have to work 2 weeks uh, to pay for tickets. But it's a beautiful venue
Yeah.
and spontaneous, and there are lots of little eateries around, so you can select something, and as well as a bar, so you can have something to eat, drink, and desserts and uh, fried foods and vegan. And I mean, it's a whole range of, of menus that are available, and in lovely seating. And it's a family grouping. People bring their children. They have group meets there. Individuals come by themselves. I mean, it's a beautiful space. Um, and I'm
Yeah.
going to have a link to that as well. So all the places where people can see you locally will be in the description. Um, anything else you'd like to add for a little chat today?
Yeah. Well, that last thing I'll say as far as or commenting on this last event. So every Monday night I'm at the R House, and they call it Baltimore's best jam session.
Mm.
My friends are the director of jazz at Peabody, Morgan, Towson, Baltimore School of Arts. And so you see everybody come together every Monday night, the faculty, the students, the artists and musicians of the community, uh, all together on Monday night. I call it a musical circus, if you will. And it's funny because there's two people who I actually met on Monday who both affirmed something I've been saying for a while. I've been saying I've never stepped foot in New Orleans, but I've heard that this is like the kind of thing you experience. And two people on Monday night were like, we haven't experienced this since New Orleans. So it's an incredible event. It's created by a guy named Clarence Ward III. He's a flugelhornist, trumpeter, and saxophone player from Baltimore. Big-hearted guy who's extremely talented, and it's just, he's the soul of Baltimore, if you will. So yeah, it's an amazing event. And like you said, it'll be in the description. But every Monday night, 7 to 10 at the R House, Baltimore Best Jam Session, and I'm in the house band. And other than that, I would just say, if I can help somebody, and that's my goal. So if nothing else, for anyone that's listening to this, my desire is to help you to be well in life in all ways as I help myself. So please, by all means, tap into my soulful self-care, so that I can help you through my meditations and through the music and the movement and the mindfulness and mantras every day to just live your life in the most efficient and in the best quality emotional, physical, and mental way. Um, yeah, and be that ripple in humanity. Let's try to be that ripple together.
Well, Aaron, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to share your experiences, tell your story. Your life really is an open book, and you have become a real vessel for the best of humanity. And I'm personally grateful to have met you, to call you my friend, my mentor, and I am literally old enough to be your mom because she and I are contemporaries. Um, but it's a beautiful journey, and I'm happy, satisfied, grateful, and excited at the same time because I know many more wonderful things are coming down the pike. that you are intentionally engineering. And I'm just glad to have a little part of the ride of that journey. So thank you again. Tell your mama said hi.
I sure
And
will.
I'll be seeing you soon.
All right, see you soon.
Love you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye bye.